Turning National Guards people into immigration judges? Let's break that down. Hi, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and this is The Breakdown. Make sure to subscribe to Legal AF as we bring you breaking news as well as all the drama going on with this current administration. So, in very troubling news out of my home state of Florida, the Florida governor has asked the presidential administration for permission to be able to deputize Florida National Guards people to serve as immigration judges. Yeah. So remember the whole debate that we've been having around due process and the fact that people are just basically being deported, despite the fact that they may have a final hearing in front of the, basically for an immigration judge to make a decision as to whether or not they should stay. And in general, when you get arrested, you are entitled to due process, whether it be because it's an immigration issue or if it's a criminal issue, no matter what, you still get due process under the Constitution of the United States. Well, the Florida governor is trying to be slick. And so basically what he's saying is that if he can make all of these Florida Guards people, National Guards people, be immigration judges on the fly, then that addresses the quote unquote due process concerns. And then people can then be expedited to be deported out of this country, again, all being done in support of this presidential administration's plan to mass deport people left, right, and center. So according to his plan, now again, because of the lack of transparency, we don't know all of the nuts and bolts that is being requested at this point. But basically, under his plan, he would make basically the judge advocate generals that serve as part of the National Guard into immigration judges. Now, let's break something down here. What's a JAG? So a judge advocate general is an attorney that is basically attached to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, whatever the case may be. And they serve as either defense attorneys or prosecutors, and they can actually flip-flop roles depending on what the situation may be. So on one day, they could be prosecuting a member of the armed forces for improper conduct, and then the next day they could be defending a guards person or a member of the armed forces for improper conduct, right? So it's a very interesting sort of system. But be that as it may, they are attorneys. They're not judges. Now, of course, how does an attorney become a judge? Obviously, you've got to go through different types of training just so that, again, you understand how to figure out how to make a decision, how to look at evidence, what sorts of things are admissible, all of that from, again, that judicial perspective. Not, because again, when you're making an argument in front of a judge, you get it in theory, but there's a reason why all judges basically go to judicial college. You get appointed or you get elected as judge, and then you go for, 1-2 week course to be able to learn how to be an effective judge. So there's that. But what's disturbing about all of this is how this is all going to be executed. So it's sounding to me, because again, we don't have a full plan to react to, but it's sounding to me that these are going to be judge advocate generals serving as immigration judges on the fly. So it seems to me, again, from what's being made available, the type of situation where somebody gets detained, a random immigration judge shows up at the side of the street, gives them a hearing, and then they're deported in the next breath. That's not due process, okay? Due process is you actually go into some sort of courtroom. You have counsel representing you, right? This is not just you, flailing about on your own in the legal system. You have an attorney representing you. You have an opportunity to be able to present evidence and say, hey, I shouldn't be deported because, whether it's I'm here because I have credible threats from my home country, or I have a student visa and it doesn't expire for another year, or I've been here, I've been working, I'm married, I'm waiting for my final paperwork to come through, or whatever the case may be. You had that opportunity to have a hearing so that a judge makes a decision. They hear from the prosecution, basically saying, hey, the person should be deported and these are the reasons why. And then the judge hears from the defense and hears all the reasons why they shouldn't be deported. And then with that judge, hearing all of the facts, they can then make a decision as to whether or not someone should stay or someone should go. If you have a random person at the side of the street who clearly their mandate is to deport people, right? Because it's not going to be, oh yes, Florida guards person who's now serving as an immigration judge. There's going to be a reason why you would allow someone to stay versus send them off to deportation, right? They're not going to give that sort of grace for the acting judge to be able to find a reason for someone to stay. It's all in furtherance of making sure that folks get deported. So there is no fair hearing here. There is no impartial hearing that's happening here. So that kills a whole due process argument right off the rip. So forget that. Now, also, what really would make the most sense, because let's get it clear. Yes, there is a huge backlog of immigration cases. There's about a 3.7 million case backlog in this country in terms of immigration cases. So yes, the fact that this does not happen rapidly is a problem. How do you address that? You hire more judges. You hire more attorneys, not only to be prosecutors, but also to defend folks who are now facing removal, right? And then that would move the process along. But instead, if you remember all of the purges that have happened earlier this year, well, immigration judges were part of that. And I can speak about this with close personal knowledge because I've had friends of mine who were appointed to become immigration judges, already went to the training, were about to basically go to whatever post they were being assigned to, and all of a sudden they got fired because they were on quote unquote probation. Now, be clear, these are folks that served as attorneys under ICE and Department of Homeland Security working on doing removals and all of that. So it's not like they had no concept of the work or anything like that. And then remember, once you get elevated from being a rank and file DHS ICE attorney and you become an immigration judge, well, you're starting probation all over again. Again, not because you did anything wrong or anything like that, but it's because it's a different position with the feds. So when you start a different position with the feds, you then start probation all over again for a period of 2 years. And earlier this year, the presidential administration were firing people willy-nilly. Why? Because, excess. These are, basically people just gathering a paycheck and not doing anything. But meanwhile, you got a 3.7 million case backlog that you're now scrambling to address. Make that make sense, please. So this is a very awful, half-baked idea. If it is something that ends up moving forward, so in other words, the presidential administration gives permission, gives the Florida governor his blessing to go ahead with this harebrained scheme, well, there's going to be a ton of lawsuits to follow. So there's that. I don't think that they'll be able to really get this off the ground and moving forward because you've got due process concerns, you've got training concerns, you've got fairness concerns, you just got all manner of concerns with that. So we'll definitely keep an eye on this, see if it actually moves forward, but that's something that folks need to be aware of because this can end up being a model that could spread to more conservative states. And then you have a situation where people who are facing removal, people who are basically trying to fight to be able to stay in this country are really going to have even more of an uphill battle. I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva. And this was The Breakdown. Be sure to subscribe to Legal AF. Take care.
I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.